Ah, yes, the extraterrestrial grandmother willow. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2009 epic sci-fi film, Avatar. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Avatar stars Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, and Sigourney Weaver, and was directed by James Cameron. Set in the 22nd century, it tells the story of Marine Jake Sully, who's sent to the moon Pandora in order to interface with the indigenous population of Na'vi. At this point, it's impossible to talk about Avatar without mentioning two things. First off, this is the highest grossing film of all time. Following a brief battle with Avengers Endgame and a subsequent re-release, Avatar has grossed nearly $3 billion worldwide, which is just a mind-boggling feat. The other thing to mention is just how much of a phenomenon this movie was back when it was released. It's dipped in popularity and public opinion since, and has become a bizarrely depreciated blockbuster over the last decade or so, but this was huge for a time. The 3D, the spectacle, Avatar was everywhere. I remember Avatar Mania very well. I was in college, and this was one of the few periods in my life when I wasn't frequenting the movie theater, but even away from that sphere, this film was huge. Of course, neither the box office nor popularity have any bearing on a critical review of this film, then or now, but they're still worth noting as important context. Blockbusters always try to go big, but Avatar was, and still is, a spectacle of a movie. It's a massive film with huge, sweeping scope and scale, which eclipses that of many other blockbusters. It's hard to not be sucked in by the impressive world building here. The planet of Pandora, with its expansive environments and strange animals, the indigenous Na'vi with their extensive culture, traditions, and beliefs, even the science behind the Avatar program, and the array of futuristic sci-fi technology on display. It's a detailed and meticulously crafted world that feels lived in. With the complexity and sheer number of world-building ideas shown here, sometimes only for mere seconds, Avatar is one of those films that gives the impression that it's only providing us with a small glimpse into what its world has to offer. The world building is impressive, but without the visual effects, it would have just been a bunch of ideas. The visuals are what truly make Avatar the spectacle that it is, and what allowed it to become the global phenomenon that it did. At the time of its release, it was one of the most visually impressive computer-generated films ever, utilizing extensive motion capture technology and shown in dazzling 3D, which made things look even more sensational. Even watching this film today, 13 years after its release, it still looks pretty fantastic. CG technologies have advanced quite a bit during that time, and have become a visual effects mainstay in the vast majority of blockbusters these days. So audiences have certainly had a lot of experience and exposure, but this still holds up remarkably well. Some shots, and specifically textures, look a little off, but the Na'vi, and especially the landscapes and backgrounds, still look phenomenal. The floating mountains, the forests, the bioluminescence, they all help to make this extraterrestrial world feel real. Beyond the visuals, Avatar is definitely a mixed bag. It manages to possess these strangely opposing qualities. There's a lot to this film, but the story is also pretty basic. It's exceptionally creative, but it's also highly derivative. It's incredibly long, but also somehow feels rushed with many of its ideas. It's a weird mix. To be fair, this movie had a lot that it needed to do. Not only did it have to introduce this universe and world build within it, but it also had to establish a good deal of characters and tell a story too. And it does manage to do all of those things. It's just that most of the focus seemed to have gone to the world building part of it. The story's okay, and some of the characters are okay, but for a film that really seems to pride itself on its expansive creativity, this is a very familiar movie. I'm not going to be reductive and say that Avatar is a purely derivative movie. It certainly has its original aspects, and honestly, at this point in storytelling history, everything's at least a little derivative of the things that came before it. But even that very first time I watched this film, I was struck by how similar it was to so many other movies. That usually happens in the background as I watch any movie, but Avatar's, shall we say, inspirations always end up standing front and center when I watch it. And new ones become obvious with each rewatch. The plot, the characters, the themes, they all seem like they were directly lifted from dozens of other movies, and then blended together with a few unique world-building ideas and spectacular visuals to create Avatar. At this point, I've seen Avatar quite a few times, and I will say that I always enjoy it when I watch it. It's not a movie that I ever clamor to rewatch, but it manages to hook me and mostly keep my attention whenever I do. But I can't help but feel like something's missing for me with this movie. I'm not sure if it's something with the story or the characters, or maybe it's just not a genre that I can be engrossed by, but whatever it is, Avatar just doesn't capture me in the way that it does so many other people. That's fine, especially since I do still like the movie, but I've often found myself wishing that I could be as taken by it as others. To be honest, its global phenomenon status has always baffled me a bit, and I'm not entirely sure how this is gonna fare as a 5-film franchise, but if it means we get to see some more of this world building and blockbuster spectacle, then I guess I'm still in, even after all these years. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number 1 is the world building. It's mind-bogglingly expansive. We've got the futuristic sci-fi technology and militarized space exploration side of things, the literal world building of Pandora with its vast ecosystems and unique extraterrestrial flora and fauna, and then, of course, there's the indigenous Na'vi. They're obviously inspired by a hodgepodge of real indigenous peoples from around the world, but their community, culture, belief systems, and extensive connection with nature are fascinating to watch. In fact, there's so much world building in this movie, it can't even come close to fully exploring even a small piece of it. The second pro has got to be the visual effects. Now, this is an obvious one, considering it's Avatar's big claim to fame, other than its box office prowess, of course, but there's no denying it's a visually marvelous film. This movie is a spectacle, and although huge chunks of it are purely CG animation, it still looks remarkably good, even after 13 years of technological advancements. The environments and backgrounds are especially immersive, made even more so with the 3D, and the facial motion capture gives the Na'vi a level of expression that's still impressive today. On the con side, the biggest issue is how derivative this film is. It's fine for movies to draw inspiration from other movies. It happens all the time, and with how many films and stories are out there, it would honestly be a feat to craft something entirely original at this point. But when these inspirations become a distraction, that's when it becomes an issue. And for me, anytime I watch this movie, all I could think about are the dozen or so other movies that clearly tell at least pieces of the same story. Pocahontas, Atlantis, Princess Mononoke, Fern Gully, Dances with Wolves, The Emerald Forest, the list goes on, and somehow grows every time I rewatch it. Avatar has its original components, no doubt, but most fall under the umbrella of world building rather than storytelling. The second con is the characters, or at least most of the characters. As with the story, there's just something disappointingly generic about most of the humans here. Although occasionally funny in his fish out of water role, Jake Sully is a painfully dull protagonist. Similarly, our primary antagonist is one of the most single-minded and one-dimensional villains we've had in a blockbuster, maybe ever. And that's saying something, considering the T1 Terminator also falls under this category. It's a really strange scenario, especially for the #1 movie of all time. The best characters are just okay, and the worst? Well, they're pretty awful. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Avatar or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm going to give Avatar 3.5 out of 5 paws. It's a sci-fi fantasy epic of tremendous scope and scale, visually impressive with engrossing world building and themes, but the story and characters are overly familiar. I would recommend Avatar to people who like sci-fi fantasy. To the right audience, this is the kind of film that can transport you. It's a massive and engaging movie, drawing upon many influences while also becoming an influencer to many others. If you liked Avatar, I would recommend Pocahontas. Although it's not a sci-fi film, the story similarities are impossible to ignore. It's another imperialistic tale about foreigners in search of mined elements who encroach on an indigenous population, with a love story bridging the gap. If you're interested in another film about outsiders attempting to steal resources from an indigenous population, then you might want to check out Atlantis: The Lost Empire. In this film, a group of explorers travel to the lost city of Atlantis, where a complex civilization has arisen, and once again, a romance helps to bridge the gap. And if you'd like another movie featuring heavy environmental themes, you should check out Princess Mononoke. This is a fantasy anime film that has not only thematic similarities, but also many plot and character similarities as well. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Avatar? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what do you think about the plans for this to become a 5-film franchise? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information on this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe if you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.